Hey guys, okay, so let's talk about last night's episode of Person of Interest. And wow, was it not good or what? I mean, there was stuff happening everywhere. And we had the case of the week, and we had the case that Carter's been working on with HR, and they basically intertwined last night, and it was a brilliant episode. Absolutely the best episode I've seen so far this season. And it started off with a case of the week, and it was revolving around a girl who Finch had sent Shaw to go to protect. Actually, she didn't realize it was going to be a little girl until she got there. And this case of the week I thought was great. So we only know a little bit about Shaw, and what we know about her is she's basically extremely stoic. She doesn't really display any types of emotion, and she doesn't really you can't really tell whether she's in a good mood or a bad mood because she's basically the same all the way across the board. And in this episode, we got some flashbacks to when she was a young girl, and her and her father were in a car accident, and her father died. And so these flashbacks play throughout the episode. And what I really liked was that it kind of tied into the case of the week, because the young girl that she was protecting, she had lost her mother. She was in jail, and she was living with like a third cousin who was basically just getting money to take care of her. And obviously, through their interactions, he doesn't really care about her that much. And she had a grandfather who was in the KGB, and so he taught her how to like become a spy and do all these kinds of cool things. So in her downtime, this girl was basically spying on the neighbors in her building. And the reason why, she said, was because she was trying to get rid of the crime that was happening in her building. And it so happens that she was recording them. And I guess people found out, and they wanted to kill her. So basically, Shaw is brought in to try to save this girl. And very quickly in the introduction of this storyline, she's almost kidnapped. And then we sort of get these really great scenes between Shaw and this young girl. And she's, asking Shaw, like, like, why are you like this? Like, why are you the way you are? And she's just trying to, crack some of the hard shell that's Shaw. And she's not budging. And it was really cute. Like, this relationship kind of reminded me of the movie Aliens between Ripley and Newt, and sort of how they ended up having this like mother-daughter bond. And that's what I got in this relationship from Shaw and this little girl, Jen. And it was really cute because you could tell that Jen is kind of like Shaw, where she's, she wants to be this like tough girl, and she's not going to let anything get in her way. And Shaw is that person. So I thought that was a great storyline. And so the way that it intertwined into the HR storyline was when she got kidnapped, they were following basically Reese. They had got to a point where they had tracked down who the guys were that had kidnapped the girl, because they heard the tapes, and that led them to the police officer Simmons, who is part of HR. And Carter's storyline has been tracking Simmons and this other guy that's been working, that was part of the reason why she got demoted this season. And she was tracking his cell phone. So there was this really cool scene where Reese was walking with his phone, and he's got the GPS, and he's like, "Oh, I'm just about he's like, I'm getting close to where he's going to meet the person." And then all of a sudden in the same scene, we see Carter and him meet up. So they're both looking at each other. They're looking at each other's phones, and they realize that they're both onto the same people, but on different cases. So that was really cool. And so it turns out that Carter's people, they in HR, they're selling drugs, and they're bath salts. So they're basically trying to shake down the community and have them no longer sell the drugs that they're selling, and have them only sell bath salts. And then they're going to get the Russians to sell the drugs for them. The HR is going to get the Russians to sell the drugs for them. And so in Carter's storyline, she's been paired up with this new cop. And in last week's episode, we found out that he's been lying, and that he's basically getting intel and giving it to HR. And what we didn't know was that Carter was onto him, and she has known from the beginning. So in the very beginning of the episode, her new partner comes into the car, and he's bragging about this new gun that he just bought. And Carter's like, "Well, you just bought it you bought it and you brought it over states lines. Well, you know that this needs to be registered and has to have a ballistics report." So she takes his gun and she holds on to it. So now later on in the episode, when her partner basically, like, she's, she hasn't been open with him. He's always, she's always sneaking off doing, making these phone calls, and he knows it, and so he's reporting this to HR. And so he basically is like, listen, I want to meet with you, and let's just discuss basically our relationship. So they go to this bar, and there's the bartender sitting in the bar, and he's basically saying, listen, Carter, how can we work together if you won't even sit down and have a drink with me? You have a problem. And she's basically tells him, listen, I know what's going on here. You think you know what's going on, but I know. I know that you're working for HR. And she basically picks up her phone and shows a picture of him exchanging money with the guy from HR. And she's like, "Oh, you thought I didn't know?" And meanwhile, the guy behind the bar is getting all like kind of antsy, and he pulls out a gun on Carter. She pulls out a gun and shoots him, and looks. And then her partner, pulls out his gun. So they both got their guns drawn, and she's all like, "Put that gun down!" And she's all like, "Badass! It's awesome!" And then she's like, "Okay, we got to talk about what we're gonna do." He's like, "What we're gonna do? You just shot him." She's like, "No, you did." And she turns the gun around, and it's the gun that she took from him at the very beginning of the episode. And she basically says, "You shot him with your gun, with the gun that's registered to you, and all I need to do is run a ballistics report." And she says, "But I'm not going to do that." And she says, "You no longer work for HR, you work for me." And it was just like, oh my goodness, it was awesome. So that storyline was brilliant. And then the way that the other storyline ended, Shaw ended up finding the girl. She blew up the warehouse that the HR was trying to run these drugs from, and that case was solved. And then they basically send the little girl off to a new school and give her a new identity. And it was another great scene between the two of them, where she's basically like, "Listen, Shaw, I know that you're not damaged goods. You have emotions. They're just muted, like nobody can really see them. And if you look really hard, then we can all tell that you have these feelings inside." And she's like, "It'll just take time for them to come out." And it was a really cute scene. And she goes to walk away, and then Shaw grabs her and hugs her. And then she's like, "Oh, you're hurting me." And so again, it was like, Shaw just trying to be kind and be a nice person, but then, she's still like that tough, like aggressive kind of person. So it was a really cute scene. So that ended the case of the week, but it was brilliant just the way it tied into Carter's storyline, which I thought was amazing. And then Carter's storyline basically ends with her telling her little cop partner that she's now working for her. It was brilliant. And so now we have the last shot of the episode, and Shaw's laying down on a cot, and all of a sudden she opens her eyes, and standing over her is Root. Yeah, the crazy one who's always talking to some ghost in the machine. She's standing over her, and she basically says, "Aren't you glad to see me?" And basically, now we're going to be working together. And she tasers her, and that's it. And episode ends, and it was awesome. So that is my review of the latest episode of Person of Interest. I suggest you go and you take a look at it, because it was a really good episode. All right, guys, I'll see you next week.